I will move back over to you, Director Arbor, with a few more questions about Union Bay Estates. So the one posted in the chat asks, now that the sewer grant was turned down and Union Bay Estates application found deficient, what are the next steps to provide sewage system to Union Bay and Royston? You touched on this a bit, but maybe kind of more specific on the sewage piece for that area.
Sure, the perennial issue. Yeah, so that was a bit disappointing not to get funding. For those not aware, we applied with Comox First Nation and Union Bay Estates to try to bring a pipe to Union Bay. The big deal last year being that we finally gained access to the municipal system. So what's happening with this one now is we're basically, we took, well, I personally took the month of August to pick myself off the ground because I was really disappointed. And then staff is meeting with the partners to try to see alternatives to try to move towards the project's realization. I know the province and federal government are issuing a second call from that same pot of funding. So we haven't considered yet if we'll reapply, but that is an option. I'll reiterate that having studied the history of this project, the last thing I want to do is to bring back a proposal to residents that is just out of reach financially. So under our last proposal, I think we were looking at numbers, in the 10 to 15 general ballpark thousand for connecting into the system, rather than a few years ago we were at the 25 to 30. So, I've talked to enough people to know that we don't want to fail referendum or anything like that. We would still need public assent to move on anything. So I think we're trying to line up the cards to give ourselves a chance. And definitely I can confirm that Comox First Nation is hugely motivated around this project, in both in regards to their existing parcels, in regards to their potential treaty lands in the south area, and also due to their interest in the Bain Sound, having a healthy environment, and they're also involved with aquaculture. So they are very much on board and a driver behind it, and the CVRD itself consistently lists this project as a regional priority to senior government. So we'll keep plugging away at it, but whenever there's updates, I try to communicate to the communities either through Facebook or whatnot. So next update, James, I guess I don't know when this will hit our table again. Probably before Christmas, we should probably look at this. Or
the next electoral areas open house update. We try to have these. No,
sorry, when the sewage report might hit our table at EASC or.
Yeah, no, we're certainly looking at the next couple of months to be able to report on the South servicing question and the many priorities that you provided in the update there. We're aiming at an EASC meeting in the next couple of months.
Awesome, thank you.
Director Arbor, a quick follow-up on that. Is there any information given about why that grant wasn't successful? Like, do you hear back from?
James, I think it's fine for me to share that, right? In general lines, we did hear feedback from the province and mostly from the province, I guess. And one is, first of all, we were applying to a pot of money that had 150 million, and we were asking for a fair chunk of that pot, and we had successfully accessed that pot 2 years before for the Comox Valley treatment plan. So there was a question of regional equity that came up. And the second was, just about funding new development. They really want these funds to go towards established communities, and a big portion of our grant ask was for that, but there was questions around that, both in regards to the Comox First Nation and the Union Bay Estates land. So overall, the feedback was not terminal. I think unless James correct me, they did invite us to come back at them with more ideas and suggestions for a revised application. So it was not a firm no. It was a competitive environment, and because we had just, the main vibe I got is because our region had just gotten the water treatment plant for, I forget, 50 or 60 million. They just felt they needed to move the money around.
Great. Another Union Bay Estates questions that came in by email in advance. Have all of the conditions of the MDA been met in order for the project to move forward, or what are any outstanding requirements if they exist? This is the master development agreement, right?
Thanks. That's directly linked to the other topic, which is, so no, not all the conditions have been met. That's fair to say, but you know, Union Bay Estates has been working on it with our staff, and McElhaney is their engineering firm. A big one that it needs to be resolved, as I'm sure all residents of Union Bay is that provision for you know, community sewage, that both the development has community sewage, and also that whatever system is created is expandable to the communities of Union Bay and Royston. The game changer in the last 2 years is really our ability now, which did not exist, to connect to the system south of Courtney. So I think our staff our engineering staff and McElhaney and the owner and our corporate team are really trying to look at the implications of that, so that whatever adjustments get made is to the benefit of the communities, but also allows you know, the project to meet its conditions under the MDA.
So I have kind of a couple more questions here, but I'm just going to flag that for participants. If you have another question, you're thinking about asking a question, now is a great time to pop it into the chat, and then we can make sure that we have time to cover it in the next 15 minutes or so before we wrap up. So one more question for you, Director Arbour. Have archaeological remains recently been found at the Union Bay Estates current subdivision site? Or is that a community rumor that's being shared?
So I'm not aware that we get that level of information. A lot of the information is between the developer and the ministry and their heritage branch and archaeological branch. So I can't confirm or deny any rumors on that, because I don't think we have, unless Alana jumps in, I don't think we have that information. But what I would highlight, though, is there has been a significant change in the archaeological context altogether, in that Comox First Nation did a huge amount of work last year to bring forward a new cultural heritage policy. And we had an entire elected officials forum on that a few months back, where they're really raising the bar. And I think all of us support that in regards to their expectations in regards to any development happening across their traditional territory. So both our planning staff and Allen's Trust planning staff and everyone is wrapping their heads around this and trying to figure out best practices and to collaborate with Comox First Nation on the implementation of their new policy.
Okay. Just circling back, Director Amir, on the question that was raised about vehicle noise. So our participant has asked if there's anything that the CVRD could do to advocate to the provincial government, perhaps, to address this issue.
Yeah, no, I saw that question. Thank you. Absolutely. That is, one of our jobs. When it's not in our jurisdiction, we can advocate to the province. I have to say, though, that this is actually the first time I'm hearing of sort of like a general overall increase in vehicle noise. I'm aware of certain situations where events happened and, there was a lot of vehicular noise there. But if, the person asking the question could reach out to one of us, unless the other directors are aware of complaints of noise in general from cars, I'm not aware. But if you can reach out to us, kind of the context, like whereabouts you're hearing most of the noise, if it's speed related or not, or if it's the type of car that's coming through or not, that would be really helpful, so that when we do advocate, we can give specific examples of where this is happening.
That's great. And I will share a slide in just a moment or two with contact information for each of the directors as well. So, so that you guys have it at hand. And it's a good reminder also, I'll pop it up here, the slide that includes all of the websites that were referenced during the director's presentation, because I know we cover off a lot, but there's a lot of great information on the CVRD's website. We want to try and make it easy for you to be able to spot those and to be able to follow up for anything more that you need after today's session. Okay, so I'm not seeing any new comments in the chat. I have kind of one more question here, so I'm gonna just do my final call, I guess, on questions into the chat. If you have anything else that you want to raise, please feel free to drop it in. Otherwise, I have one that kind of is for each of the directors, so we'll take a few minutes, obviously, to go through and if, yeah, please feel free to ask anything that is on your mind. We definitely have the people here to be able to give you additional information. So the question, the last kind of question that I want to share, and maybe each of you could take a moment to share some thoughts since that last newsletter that has been shared with electoral area directors was circulated. The CBRD has approved their active transportation plan, which I know was a big undertaking. And so, you know, perhaps the question is for each of the directors: is there any project in particular, piece in particular in those that you would like to highlight as being a priority that you're glad to see move forward in your area? Director Grieve, it's kind of your turn if you have a thought off the top, or we can pass it along if you want another minute to think about that one.
Well, again, when we talk about the division of jurisdictional authority over roads and whatever, that brings to mind a lot of the chatter that I get on my social media around the absence of shoulders. The approach to the Condensatory Bridge is a big one, especially now that the detour is going through there. Other ones I think relate to Knight Road, which we're trying to move ahead on. Basically, some of the roads in the rural areas, again, they're all the purview of the Ministry of Transport, but some of them are built to codes that are much less than the modern codes. So when you have big ditches on either side of the road and a very narrow road to begin with, it is so difficult for cyclists and very unsafe. I don't know how many people travel on, say, Headquarters Road have to slow right down to a stop, you know, when they come to cyclists, because there just isn't room for two vehicles and a couple of cyclists to travel. So I'm just hoping that that we can work together respectfully and with the province on addressing a lot of these issues. I know it's going to be a generational change, because up till now, I think the ministry sees themselves as the Ministry of Cars, but times have changed. I guess some place where we can work together would be through our through our Parks Department, along with the Municipal Parks Department and the greenways and trails like the One Spot and others. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And once again, with the focus now on active transportation, I think that it'll be one of the lenses by which we look at pretty well every project that is coming up. And with any luck at all, the province will come around to realize that this is the way of the future, and we can, you know, have much safer bicycling on the rural roads than we do right now.
Great, thank you. Director Arbour, I'll pass the mic to you.
Super excited about, oh, and I see something from Jennifer Ivan. I was about to actually single her out in regards to the active transportation. Super excited about the active transportation plan. $400 million worth of projects identified and prioritized by our group, which of course is well beyond the capacity of our financial resources. But at the same time, when you have a plan, when it comes the time to apply for grants and such, now we've prioritized the projects. There's one that in Area B, as you know, we'll probably talked about, that might move really soon. In Area A, yes, there's plenty that I was excited about. I think the members of the community that participated in this exercise, like, they did a great job. One is in Royston. There's a couple of small sections of road just from a pedestrian and multi-use area around the school to try to do some major improvements there. I highlighted that as a priority when I spoke to it at the ASC. There's also widening the shoulder between Royston and Cumberland. We know Cumberland is kind of become a bike mecca. And so trying to connect those two communities, it's really not safe on that road for cycling right now. There's basically no shoulder, but was identified. Moving to Union Bay, right on the waterfront, across from the stores, opportunities again for pedestrian, for walkability, to enhance connectivity right downtown Union Bay. We recently did a little trail that connects the senior center to the sort of the downtown portion. So it talks a lot about, there's a couple $1 million worth of project identified there. I added one to the list, which I think the consultant will see if James says yes or no, or if we have someone else that will speak to that. But I added one that wasn't there, and that's the Jennifer Ivan piece, which is around Ships Point. I hear a lot of concerns about the speed of traffic between Ships Points and the community hall. And so to try to have a good access in the long term, I think would make a ton of sense and would be have both safety elements and also, there's 200 or 300 homes there that I think deserve a little bit of attention for their connectivity to the public area. And in the long term, it does mention the Island Corridor, of course, and there's a couple of pages in the report dedicated to that. I'm on the board. I'm still the Comox Valley rep on the Island Corridor Foundation. It's a tough one in our area because we have quite a lot of bridges, and so to add a path beside, even when you get out of Walmart, just to cross Miller Creek right off the bat is probably a very expensive proposition. And never mind to get all the way down to Fanny Bay. The foundation is still working towards restoring rail with our First Nation partners, but there's a lot around that one. That could be a whole topic on this one. This said, I like that in our active transportation, we identified that corridor in the long term as, rail with trail. But I don't presume, other than some local opportunities, maybe around Union Bay or otherwise, that we'll see a lot of movement very fast on that. So I understand why the consultants put it in the long term. That's me. Over to Dr. Hermier.
Thanks, Daniel. I will start with like a more overall comment about our active transportation plan. This very much connects to the question that was asked about a climate action plan. And, I think we had an old climate action plan for just the rural areas from way back in 2015. But, I think even without a formal plan, what this board has been able to do is really interweave climate action and GHG reductions in almost every aspect of the work that the regional district does. So instead of just concentrating on transit, for example, this board has really asked our staff to look at transportation and all the different modes that entails, be it walking, biking, any kind of movement that doesn't just focus on cars. So the active transportation plan, for Area B, I was excited about a couple of projects in particular. The Bates Road area is one that I know a lot of people in Area B and a lot of cyclists in particular have been commenting on, and very similar to what Director Arbour said, the speeds of cars going down Bates Road connected, and the interplay of bicyclists and speeding cars has always been a really dangerous sort of formula. So it's it's one of the big budget items in that list. It's between, I can't remember if it was $6 or $8 million, but it's one that I think is really important to connect, that area, and it's a frequently used corridor of bicyclists. The other one that I'm really excited about, and it was one that Director Grieve mentioned, is Knight Road. And we do have, the town of Comox has actually been advocating to the Minister of Transportation about this road in particular. And she seems very interested in providing at least a shoulder on one side. And it was by working together with the town of Comox that we said, well, it's no use having a shoulder on one side, having a biking path or at least an extended shoulder on both sides Comox on one side, Area B on the other just makes more sense. So this was a place where, you know, as an area director and as the regional district, we were able to work together to provide letters of support that both the town of Comox and the regional district are very supportive of this type of infrastructure to go in. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see that the ministry does put in extended shoulders on both sides to make it safer for biking, because that's another very well-traveled route. It was one that was also identified by the Cycling Coalition. So really happy to see those types of projects moving forward. And as Director Arbour mentioned, you know, once we've identified projects, we see that they do have a big budget item, but that makes it so much easier for us to then move forward and ask for funding when those grants do appear. Thanks, great question.
Great. Thank you, directors. That brings us basically to the end. Well, it brings us to the end of the list of questions with 2 minutes to spare by my clock. So that lined up about perfectly. I'm going to just switch my slide over here to share with everybody your contact information. So there's phone numbers and emails there, as well as a general email and phone number if you have a question just about a service or initiative more generally and not directly for one of the 3 directors today. So I want to thank everybody for your participation and for joining us. We hope that you've had your questions answered and you've learned something about ongoing work with this lunch hour today. We look forward to doing this again, hopefully soon, probably in the new year at this point. And just a reminder that we'll be posting this recording to the website that's on your screen right now, the connectcvrd.ca/electoral areas in the coming days. And so if you know of somebody who might be interested in the updates that were shared today, we hope that you'll help pass it along or let everyone know where it has been shared. So with that, thank you, directors and James, for your time. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thanks, everybody.